Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Top Gun Maverick. Alright, so, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. So, to start off the furry, there wasn't any. Moving on to the good. Actually, we're just going to skip the good and go right to the bad. Alright, the bad's done with. There's nothing bad in this movie. Moving on to the good. This movie is fucking amazing. And if you don't think so, you're wrong, or you didn't like the first one. So this movie stars Tom Cruise, and it also stars Miles Teller and other people. I mean, I guess, okay, Jennifer Connelly as well. She's name brand. Got to get her out there. Also stars her. She does a fantastic job. Okay, so if you haven't seen the second one, if you haven't seen the first one, you should go watch the first one, because first of all, I rewatched it recently. Still holds up, still fantastic, should have invented air conditioning. And so I think that watching the first one, you will appreciate the second one so much more. However, the second time that I watched the second one in theaters, the person that I saw it with hadn't seen the first one. I didn't know this before watching it with them, or would have said something. But they still thoroughly enjoyed the movie, despite not having seen the first one. I still think you should see the first one, but if nothing else, you gotta watch the second one on the big screen, so get to it. The first one is available free on Prime right now, as well as Paramount Plus. So go watch it. Alright, so this is basically a real-time story progression from the end of the first one till the start of this one, and unlike, I don't know, Star Trek Picard and some other shows and TV things that have just like come up with bullshit excuses for why they've sidelined their favorite character for the past 30 years. In this one, they were just like, hey, it's cool. He's been doing this thing this entire time. Like, they came up with a reasonable, logical explanation that he's been in the game for as long as he has been, and it really makes sense. The one thing that I will say is that I kind of forgot that they were operating with Navy ranks and not Air Force ranks, because they fly a lot of planes, and they were over the land for a lot of these flights. So I thought they were going with the Air Force ranks, so it was really funny to me that they kept like making the joke about him still being a captain, which in Air Force ranks is 03, and in Navy ranks is 06. So yeah, he's just a captain, but it's not quite like the, you're still just a captain? When it's not like an 03. He's an 06, okay? Which I didn't notice till the second time I watched it, and like one of the times his full bird colonel, or full bird captain rank appeared on the screen. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Not as funny, but makes more sense. Okay, moving on from that. So what I love is that both times that I saw it in theaters, Tom Cruise, not Maverick, but Tom Cruise himself, was on screen right at the start, before the movie actually started, to be like, hey, thanks for watching this in the big screen, thanks for coming. This movie was filmed with real actors in real F-18s pulling real Gs. And I'm really glad he did that, because even without that, I would have thought that it was like actual things being done on actual screens, like with real aircraft and real Gs, because there's some like face squishy and like tensing that you cannot duplicate without actual Gs. I would have thought that anyway. But the fact that he told people so that they weren't thinking like, oh, this is just really good CGI. Like, no. They were doing this for real, and you could see it, and it was great, and it was fantastic, and I think that realism, that actual aircraft with actual Gs, with actual actors doing that, was absolutely fantastic, and I think it was part of the key to how much I enjoyed this movie. And I think you will enjoy it too, if you like the first one at all. Which, again, the first one, it was made in 1986, so they didn't really have CGI to fake a whole bunch of bullshit, so that was real shit too. So this one is absolutely awesome, and I love that he's still Maverick, but he's been around for a while, and so he still had character progression. If they didn't just like, they were just like, oh hey, all those people that you know from the first one, those are the only people that matter from the second one. Like, no, they introduced new characters, and Jennifer Connelly's character and that whole thing between them, they have phenomenal chemistry, and they work really well together, and the other actress involved with that too was just fantastic. So yes, they definitely made the right choice with that, as opposed to having to continue the established romance from the first movie. Because think about Maverick's character in the first movie. Like, you could definitely see the logic of him, like, come on, not really continuing that. Come on. It definitely seems like a kind of thing for him to screw up or just move on. So absolutely awesome. I love all the side characters. I really like Miles Teller in this, but I like Miles Teller in pretty much everything nowadays. So Miles Teller is always a win, just like Tom Cruise is always a win. And you know what? Jennifer Connelly is also always a win. Fantastic. But in the first one, how they had that, like, the volleyball, the two-man volleyball thing that was somehow not homoerotic, even though there were a bunch of shirtless dudes greased up and, like, hitting around a volleyball. Well, in this one, they had another, I don't want to spoil it for you, but they had a scene reminiscent of that again was not homoerotic, but was still critical to the story that they were telling. And so that's one of the things that I like about this, is that this movie was the precisely correct length, because not a single scene was wasted. It didn't feel like they cut things too quickly. It didn't feel like they had to, like, cut around some actor's inability to do this, that, or the other thing, or that they had to cut something off because they're like, we don't have time for this story-wise. We got to go. Like, we got to have pacing. It didn't feel like they cut anything out, and it also didn't feel like, I'm going to go with the Batman, where they could have cut off the last third and it would have been fine. It didn't feel like if they had just cut down a couple of, like, super long takes that Batman had. There wasn't any of that where it was necessary, but it was good. But in this one, it had amazing pacing, but it also had fantastic story involved in it. Like, so much was conveyed, and it didn't feel like it was hitting you over the head like, you stupid? Do you see the thing we're doing? Do you see? Let's have the characters spell it out for you. Like, there was a lot that was conveyed through looks and through action, not just through dialogue, which I think is sometimes missing from some otherwise good movies, is that they feel the need to reinforce what you can clearly see on screen with dialogue to just reiterate that. And in this case, I think they made the right choice of not going that route. They didn't unnecessarily do things with dialogue, and so the action scenes were awesome, and the other characters that they brought back or that they referenced or did whatever else with from the first movie, I thought that it was really, really good how they did it. And even the second time through, I was like, every scene was the proper pace that it needed to be, and I felt every scene, and it was fantastic. And I loved that there was still time for, like, it wasn't just all serious and it wasn't just all play. It was the exact right amount of action, heart, and comedy. And this was definitely more of an action movie, but you could still have some laughs in an action movie. You know what I mean? It wasn't a serious one. If you like the Mission Impossibles, I would say that it was maybe not as funny as the funniest Mission Impossible, but definitely not as, like, serious as the first Mission Impossible. You know what I mean? So Tom Cruise is fantastic. He gives his all, just like every single other time that he does. Same with Miles Teller. The other actors that they had in the squadron, I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of them in future projects. Like, I think they did fantastic with the time that they had, and I would love to see a couple of them in future things. So I'm looking for their future careers. That'll be good stuff. But yeah, this movie is awesome. I also like that they had, like, they never were like, oh, this country is the bad guy country. Because the thing is, and again, seriously, if you haven't seen the first one, I've already kind of spoiled some things, but future spoilers right here for the first movie, okay? Okay. But in the first one, like, Tom Cruise takes out, 2 or 3 MiGs? And we all know that MiGs are a widely exported aircraft, so you could genuinely believe that, like, okay, what country could it be? But this world that we're in is one where Tom Cruise's character has had air-to-air conflicts in the past 50 years. And so they were like, oh, hey, there's this bad guy, there's this enemy that has 5th-generation fighters and F-14s, and we don't want him to have nukes or uranium, and how they were just like, yeah, that's the bad guy this time around. They didn't have to be like, oh, this is North Korea, because that's believable, right? No. It's just like it's the enemy, and that's all that mattered for it, because that's what you wanted to see. Is you wanted to see them go against the enemy. So it wasn't about the political or like showing, oh, we got to do this or that, or we can't do this because the money that, or whatever else. It was just the enemy, and I liked how they did that. That was well done, and I didn't feel cheapened or put off or anything like that. It was very well done, and I liked it. And I liked all the characters that they had, even the ones that weren't around for very long. Like, they did their piece excellent. So I legitimately don't have anything bad to say about this movie. I'm sure there had to have been some CGI enhancements for one or two things, but none of the F-18 stuff. I don't think anyway. And the dialogue was fantastic. The action was fantastic. The pacing, the storyline, the actors, and the music. I know I haven't mentioned it, but like the first movie, holy shit, that soundtrack was awesome. And it holds up. It's amazing. And this one, yeah, it borrows some from the first movie, but why wouldn't you? But it's also fantastic and just like gets you going. You're just like, ah. And I think, and hopefully this doesn't put you off. But my favorite Star Wars movie so far is Episode 7. It used to be Episode 5 because for other reasons, but Episode 7 because it was basically Episode 4 with new graphics and new technology that they could do cooler scenes and fights and whatever else. And that's kind of how I feel about this one, is that they had, like, even the opening sequence was just like, hey, you know that fucking amazing opening sequence from the first one? Well, here it is with, like, IMAX, 8K, whatever fucking cameras with the technology that we have now to shoot that. So there was a lot of things where I was just like, oh, I can see the referencing and the story beats and whatever else. Like, it's Top Gun, but with new fucking technology, and I am here for it. So, highly recommend, go see it now. Go see it in theaters. I'm sure most of you have already. If you haven't, take 2 hours, go watch the first one on Prime or Paramount Plus, and then go watch the second one in theaters. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye.